someone who always leaves a lasting impression, and that's Ranger Nick.
Yeah, this month he made his way through security checks and somehow found himself where very few people are allowed to go, and that's the infield of a major airport.
Well, I tell you what, this gig gets me in some pretty amazing places. And today I'm standing right along a runway at the world's most traveled airport, the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. And standing with me today is Mr. Stephen Boyd. And he is the wildlife biologist here at the airport. The folks here at Atlanta do an amazing job managing all the two-legged creatures that come through its doors every day. But I want to talk a little bit about the non-people individuals that come through here, and that's the wildlife, and that's why I'm here with Stephen. Stephen, what are some of the kinds of wildlife that would even visit an airport like this and a habitat like we're standing in today?
All types of wildlife, but we predominantly deal with birds. We also deal with terrestrial mammals, bats, even bats. But predominantly, like I said, birds, and we try to mitigate that. We try to mitigate the hazard involved in aircraft moving, birds moving. Yeah. They both fly.
Yeah.
So we try to make sure that they don't collide with one another.
And this place is nearly 5,000 acres of land that's here at this airport, and we're standing amongst a bunch of grass, taller grasses out here. This is a habitat for wildlife, and folks like Stephen are in charge of mitigating some of that habitat. I want to talk a little bit about how they go about doing that, and I think you're going to be amazed at some of the advanced technological techniques they use to take care of those animals. Now, what you just heard there was yet another technique that folks like Stephen are using here at the airport to deter wildlife. Stephen, tell us about this contraption that we're standing next to today.
This is a propane cannon with an audible distress call on it with 20 speakers. You heard how loud it was. The speakers are about 125 decibels. The actual cannon report itself is 130 decibels. So this is used to essentially scare birds from the airport environment to mitigate wildlife hazards here at Atlanta.
Absolutely, and some of the calls for our folks at home that are real bird fans, some of the calls were of predatory birds. So those are some birds like red-tailed hawks and other things that are being played through the speaker to deter that wildlife in a very safe way. I've seen these contraptions outside of an airline window many times, but never thought that that is what this is being used for, to deter wildlife. Incredible. So how about this, Stephen? I'm standing at the world's most traveled airport on a runway that is currently closed right now. It's springtime, many more people are traveling now. Wildlife are also traveling. I heard that 2014 was an unprecedented year for wildlife and aircraft strikes. Talk to us a little about that.
Yes, over 13,500 strikes were recorded in 2014. Here in Atlanta, we also saw a rise in strikes, but the common misconception is that a lot of strikes is bad. We're concerned with damaging strikes, so a lot of damaging strikes is bad, but non-damaging strikes provide data it's tools. It provides me with tools to mitigate the hazards that are out on the airfield. There may have been a potential for damage. We're trying to mitigate that in the future.
And look at all the things that you're talking about doing out here, whether it's from fencing to habitat mitigation to the sounds and the propane cannons. Amazing things that are being done to work in harmony with some of these animals. Well, probably the most infamous wildlife strike of an airplane happened, the Miracle on the Hudson. And that was, of course, associated with what kind of wildlife, Stephen?
Canada geese.
So Canada geese, an obvious concern out here at the Atlanta airport and all major airports, but what are some of the other kinds of wildlife that folks like you are concerned about in terms of running into aircraft?
Yeah, usually people associate wildlife strikes with larger birds like Canada geese, but we deal with smaller birds on a regular basis. European starlings are one of the most abundant birds that we deal with out here at the Hartsfield-Jackson. And we're standing underneath a piece of the ILS equipment now that you can see exclusion devices that we've installed to keep birds like European starlings off of them. With their perching on these structures, they actually interfere with pilot instrumentation. So just another technique that we use out here to mitigate wildlife hazards.
And I don't think that folks at home realize when they look out the window of that airplane that these things exist and that folks like Stephen are out there looking out for wildlife and trying to deter them from this area. Talked about European starlings, talked about Canada geese. What about mammals out here?
White-tailed deer. We deal with white-tailed deer. canines like coyotes.
Yeah, yeah.
Believe it or not, here in Atlanta we have coyotes.
I've seen them. I've been leaving the airport here in Atlanta and seeing coyotes myself. So they're after the food associated that would live out here. Incredible. Well, wasn't this something today? Wildlife management, plain and simple. We talked about techniques for mitigating those wildlife, whether it's through fences or things that are on some of the towers at the airport. We talked about some of the ways that they're using propane cannons to control these things. It's amazing to see the effort that the airport's going through to look out for wildlife. Next time you're in a plane, look out the window and pay attention to some of the things near you that are being done to look out for those critters. Well, y'all know what to do. Go online and like the Georgia Farm Monitor Facebook page, and while you're there, slide on over to the Ranger Nick page and like that. You know I love it when y'all do that. And until next time, remember, as I always say, enthusiasm is contagious, so pass it on. From the airport here in Atlanta, I'm Ranger Nick. Looking forward to seeing you right back here again next month. See ya.